2010. Local television will never be the same.
Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Thomas, and welcome to Local Sports on NNTV.
Rise and shine, Niagara. I'm Jillian Darchie. You're watching Niagara Mornings on NNTV, Niagara Now.
I'm Rob McConnell, and this is the X Zone on NNTV.
An exciting new channel dedicated to Niagara is...
The X Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Well, she seemed alright by dawn's early light, though she looked a little worried and weak. She tried to pretend he wasn't drinking again, but Daddy left the proof on her cheek. And I was only 8 years old that summer, and I always seemed to be in the way. So I took myself down to the fair in town on Independence Day. Well, word gets around in a small...
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. 1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll free. Email xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv at hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Just a short programming notice here. Starting November 2010, the X Zone Radio Show is moving back to Niagara. We're going to be broadcasting Monday through Friday from the theater studios of NNTV in Niagara Falls. And the show will be carried on satellite, live television, radio, as well as worldwide on the internet. So no matter where you are around the world, you'll be able to call in and ask our very special guest questions. If you'd like to drive down to the studios in Niagara Falls, Ontario, you're more than welcome. The theater will be open. You'll be able to get psychic readings, interact with our guests. It's a whole new growth spurt for the X Zone radio show and TV show, and we're very pleased to be part of the NNTV family. If you'd like to see the promo that came out for the debut of the network, which is November 2010, just go to xzonepodcast.com. My guest this hour is Dr. Jonathan Ellerby, and we're going to be talking about making spirituality simple and everyday inspired. He's been featured as an expert in films, print, television, and radio. He is the author of Return to the Sacred, Your Spiritual Personality, and is the spiritual program director for the internationally acclaimed Canyon Ranch Health Resort in Tucson, Arizona. Jonathan has over 20 years of experience in the field of holistic healing, spiritual counseling, integrative medicine, and corporate consulting. Now, drawing from a PhD in comparative religion and travels to meet and study with healers and teachers in more than 40 cultures around the world, Jonathan makes spirituality simple and everyday inspired. His website is jonathanellerby.com. And Jonathan, welcome to the X Zone. Super having you with us.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be here.
First of all, congratulations on your new book, Inspiration Deficit Disorder, the no-pill prescription to end high stress, low energy, and bad habits. What was the inspiration for this book? Could it have anything to do with our lifestyles these days?
Yeah, the last book I wrote, Return to the Sacred, was one of those books you might say came from the inside out. It was one of these burning inner messages that I wanted to share with the world. But then as I started to spend more time in the public eye, I started to listen to what people wanted, what they wanted more of, what they wanted to hear about, what they wanted help with. And so really this new book, Inspiration Deficit Disorder, is a response, exactly as you say, to the growing sense of despair and disconnection that even people who are really well-intentioned are starting to feel. So it's very practical, very much a how to take this home and get yourself out of the feeling of being stuck, even if you can't make the dramatic changes that you'd like to in the short term.
You must have seen a lot of changes over your 20 years helping people. We've got about 30 seconds left until I have to take my first break. To what do you contribute the number one cause of all the stress and turmoil in a person's life these days?
Ooh, 30 seconds. I'm going to give you two answers.
Okay.
One, the pace of technology and change in our culture far faster than any of us ever expected and overwhelming in its ramifications. And two, it exaggerates the number one problem, which is the tendency to make choices from the outside in, meaning based on other people's views and expectations, not our own.
I agree with you 100%, and you and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break in 2 minutes. Exo Nation, my very special guest is Dr. Jonathan Ellerby, www.jonathanellerby.com. We'll be back. Don't go away. Jonathan Ellerby is our special guest. We're talking about inspiration deficit disorder. No pill prescription to end high stress, low energy, and bad habits. His website, www.jonathanellerby.com. Jonathan, before we went to the break, we were talking about technology and its effect on today's populace. Now, last night, on our way home from Niagara, we stopped in at a restaurant. My wife and I do something very rare at the table. We talk. We don't.
Wow.
You know, we communicate, but
I've heard of that.
Yeah, we like to talk. Sitting beside us was a mom and dad and their son and daughter. And they've all got their little texting machines, their little Blackberries, their cell phones. And they're busy off doing their own thing while sitting down in this restaurant. And I find that so rude. Now, am I the only person that sees technology as an inconvenience? Like there's a time and a place for everything, and I think technology also has a place and a time in our lifestyles. What's your take on this?
Well, I think that you and I are probably two great examples of people who rely on technology on a daily basis and for our careers. Mm-hmm. Phones, computers, emails, Facebook, you name it.
Yeah.
But you said it right, time and a place. You know, the great expense that we are experiencing at the hands of technology is that we are disconnecting. I mean, the irony is that the more and more we become connected technologically with other people, the more and more we seem to be becoming disconnected emotionally and spiritually with other people. You know, one of the things I experienced personally, but certainly have seen in traveling around the world, is that virtually all of the healing and medical traditions of this planet, up until just the last couple hundred years where the Western model took a turn, they have all believed in and been very clear about the presence of a human energy field. And that when we are in dialogue, face to face, when we can laugh together, touch each other's shoulders or sit beside each other watching, even if it's watching a movie or going for a walk in the park, that we actually are interacting at a subtle level that is changing our biochemistry, our emotional state, and some might even say our spiritual dimension. This is all lost when you have 1,000 friends who you'll never meet because you only get to know them through one-sentence blurbs on Facebook or Twitter.
I had a guest on the other day, and we were talking about this, and he says, well, he's written a book about people who are addicted to video games, and now he's talking about the addiction of these social networks. And the way, he says, well, these people would not have any social skills if it wasn't for the social networks. And, well, wait a sec, hold on. The reason why, in my opinion, that people are having this trouble because you can hide and live in a virtual reality, where in my day and in my day-to-day life, you live in reality. Your feet are planted in reality. I do my job. I go home. Life goes on without all this technological gadgetry that I'm surrounded with at work. I enjoy talking to my kids. I enjoy talking to my neighbor. You know what? I even enjoy going out and cutting my grass. You walk into our home, on the right-hand side, there's a table. That's where you leave your BlackBerries. That's where you leave your cell phones. That's where you leave your PDAs. You come to see us. You come to see us. I take it as a personal insult if you're in my house and you say, oh, wait a minute, I've got to take this call. No, you don't.
What you're really talking about is this culture of distraction. It's a culture of distraction. Not only are we not learning how to relate to each other, but we're actually not learning how to relate to ourselves. At the heart of this idea of inspiration deficit is basically the notion that our happiness and our physical health is rooted in how well our life choices, relationships, and conduct reflects who we really feel we are inside, our truest sense of self as we know it at the time. Well, if the majority of our time is oriented outward, checking pings and blips and tweets and all these other things, the cost is we lose less and less of that quality time, not only to reflect inward, but to deal with the, as you would call it, the real stuff that shows up when you're actually in relationships with people. I'm seeing in my work a growing number of new kinds of concerns and problems in relationships, precisely because people are expecting their partners to relate to them face-to-face as if they were on the internet, meaning they're not relating to the emotional cues. They don't want to have to deal with their style of communication, how they say things, or the emotions that they are trampling over. They want it to be clean and cut and dry and like a computer interaction. That's not the human being. It never has been, and it certainly never will be.
Another example I can give you is a member of my own family. Instead of yelling out, supper's ready, what does she do? She texts them all. Like, come on, you're all in the same house, for goodness sake. How is...
Well, I'll tell you another thing that I saw as a personal example that's very, I think, interesting for people to hear. People are now people are now airing family conflicts on the internet. So rather than going and saying, hey, Charlie, you embarrassed me at dinner last night, or hey, Sally, you hurt my feelings when you said this, or hey, when I asked you to do your homework, whatever it is, people are instead, they go online and they tell 100, 1,000, 2,000 strangers, I hate my family, I'm mad at my dad, my kids are driving me crazy, and this is the substitute for communication.
Is society that desperate for attention that they're willing to wash their dirty laundry and hang it out in front of the techno world to see and to help solve?
Well, see, I think this is the interesting irony, which is I do believe we are hardwired as human beings to connect. I think that it is our nature to be interconnected, to perceive interconnection, and to want to fulfill it. The trick is that we are also hardwired to want to avoid discomfort and painful emotions. So you offer someone a way to be connected without having to face your feelings, and most people will immediately, habitually, and automatically choose that one over the real-life encounter. The problem with this is they won't experience the cost until later, and then it shows up in a sense of feeling stuck, depression. You'd be shocked at all the ways this kind of connection deficit or inspiration deficit will show up in people's relationships and health.
You deal with the corporate world. How is the corporate world coping with all this social networking, and is it affecting their corporate structure as well as their bottom line?
Yeah, it's interesting. What I've seen in some of the corporate work that I've done recently is a very bizarre split where a huge portion of the organization, it's usually an 80-20 split, the employees, so everything below a director or maybe below a manager, they're trying to forbid them from being on Facebook and Twitter and on non-approved websites during the work hours. So that's an active, ongoing struggle in corporations today. On the other hand, what we're seeing is an acceleration of use of this kind of technology and social networking amongst executives. And the executives that I'm meeting today more and more are quite literally losing their minds because they are reachable everywhere all the time.
You and I were talking during the commercial break that there are certain school boards that are either going to be taking out the Wi-Fi or using a dampening process so that kids cannot use their cell phones, their Blackberries, and texting apparatus and what have you. And then there are other school boards that are saying, no, it's good for the kids to interact with technology. Well, you know what? Here's my take on it, for whatever it's worth. When you've got a kid who is texting with all these little LOLs, OMG, Y, BBF, and all this, what are they going to do when they get into the real world? And here's the big question. What would happen during a total communication blackout? How would they cope?
Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful?
I think so.
If we could just shut down the systems for a week. Forget schools. We should have a national no cell phone day or a week and make people talk to their neighbors and their friends and actually pay attention to where they're going and while they're driving. I think that with our economy, I know this may sound like a sidestep, but the discipline that it takes in our families, in our schools, and in our own lives is only getting more intense. Because, let's face it, a lot of people now are working two jobs, or they're looking for a different job. They're juggling more things, trying to get more to sustain this lifestyle that we're all addicted to. And we think we're going to get it by being on duty 24 hours a day. And that's just not true. I mean, one of the things that I've also, really learned time and time again from travel is that a lot of other countries in the world have known for generations that learning to slow down from time to time throughout the day and throughout the week can actually make you more productive and ultimately more satisfied whether you're successful or not.
When it comes to the employees at work wanting to use Facebook, if you're there to work, you're not paid to be on the social networks. You're paid to be there to work. What you do on your lunch, what you do on your break, that's your business. But to use the company's assets and the company's tools to Twitter, to use Facebook or whatever, or even picking up your own cell and twittering or tweeting, whatever they call it, while you're at work, getting paid to do a job. You know what? I think that, once again, this is just my opinion, that there should be a dampening or getting rid of the Wi-Fi. And you know what? What people are doing is they're forcing their companies to do the one thing that they don't want them to do, and that's Big Brother watching. You and I have to take a commercial break. We'll be back after the news. Jonathan Ellerby is our special guest, Exo Nation, www.jonathanellerby.com. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Whatever you do, don't go away, because we're coming right back. You're listening to the X-Zone Radio Show, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, and Star Cable. Our toll-free telephone number worldwide is 1-800-610-7035. Our email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv at hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. All right, here I am sitting in front of my computer. I've got my BlackBerry here, and I'm trying to text. No, I'm not. Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. This is Rob McConnell. My special guest this hour is Dr. Jonathan Ellerby. We're talking about Jonathan's new book entitled Inspiration Deficit Disorder. The No Pill Prescription and High Stress, Low Energy, and Bad Habits. His website is www.jonathanellerby.com. You know, Jonathan, we were talking before we went to the break about what I would do if I was a boss, and I'm sure that I would be down in the personnel office with employees left, right, and center, because I think if you're at a place to work. You know, you don't have to get on the social networks. You don't have to Twitter. You don't have to tweet. You don't have to go near MySpace, my Facebook, or whatever else you're doing. You're there to work. You're there to get paid for the work you do. And I would also put some sort of control. Let's call them employer controls that, you know, you could use certain websites, but, you know, when it comes to anything other than the websites that are applicable to your specific job, I'd block them. And, you know, many people say that's wrong, but the way I look at it, hey, if I'm paying you a salary, you're here to work, not to tweet around. And are the people that you talk to in your business when you're consulting with corporate CEOs and other heads of departments, do they also see it that way, or do they have a different attitude when it comes to the social networking and the misuse of? No, eh?
You're right on. You're right on. I mean, that is what's actually taking place now. Screen blockers. Cyblock is a popular program. I mean, literally, if certain keywords are not on a website that are directly related to the business, the website will be blocked. Actually having policies where people are not allowed to be on their cell phone during work hours. Now, I also work at Canyon Ranch, which is a health resort, and so we even have that policy there as well. Now, of course, it's partially because we're setting a certain kind of environment, and we don't want our guests to see us all running around like maniacs on our phones. The complexity of implementing this, though, gets at a bigger issue that we're seeing in our culture today, which is, on one hand, one thing I celebrate is that more and more this sort of new generation of thinking is one that understands that we do have personal needs, that life isn't only about sacrificing ourselves for others, and that it's important to respect our personal, I guess you could say needs or our personal sort of nature. I mean, that's a good development. The cost, though, and the fine edge is that too often that turns into a sense of entitlement. That it's not just that I know what I want, but I should get to have it whenever I want it, however I want it. And if you tell me I can't have it, then there's something wrong with you. Then you're infringing on my rights and all this kind of business. And frankly, this attitude of entitlement is really what's at the heart of this sort of conflict in the workplace today, that I am entitled to do whatever I want, wherever I want. And, you know, the reality is, I just don't think that's true. You know, it's like when I got married, I may be able to do anything I want, but I made certain commitments that there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm just not going to do anymore. And if I want to stay in the relationship, I'm just going to honor that commitment. And if someone shows up for a job, there's just certain things you're agreeing to do and not do. If you don't like those rules, go work somewhere else.
Do you think that society has given society too many freedoms under the protection of rights?
Well, it's a complicated question because on one hand I will say I don't think the problem really lies in freedom. The problem lies in self-discipline and a lack of a culture of respect. So where we see cultures that have a very high ethic of community, of mutual respect, of nonviolence, then what we find is that greater freedom just isn't a problem. But conversely, what we're getting in our culture, and this gets back to the too much technology piece, we get more and more freedom, but we have less and less responsibility, less and less self-discipline, less and less respect for our neighbors. So in that sense, I think it's becoming a very dangerous formula.
Tell me more about your Canyon Ranch Health Resort in Tucson.
Well, Canyon Ranch started just over 30 years ago, and it's kind of known as a pioneering health resort. It's one of the first places that ever took this idea of a spa and a vacation getaway, and then wanted to add wellness and health. So if you came and toured the property, you could see or meet doctors, nurses, psychologists, as well as nutritionists, exercise physiologists, and then all the fun stuff, dance instructors and aerobics instructors and hiking and biking and even creative arts. The idea is it's a place that's built on the idea of prevention and teaching people sort of the leading ideas in health and wellness so that people don't have to spend all their money down the road on medical bills. So we see a lot of people who are really there to, instead of use a vacation to just escape life, but to take a break from their regular life and really invest in something that's going to return to them over time, and that's their health and their mindset and their ability to manage stress.
So how can listeners listening today who just haven't got the ability to get to your center deal with the high amount of stress that each and every one of us is under today?
Well, I know it's kind of a taboo answer for a guest to ever say, well, just read my book. It's all in there.
No, it's not a taboo answer. It's a fact of life. So basically what I'm asking you, doctor, is can you spill the beans a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. There's a few things that show up as really key in what I'm trying to share. One is, let's just say, the physical dimension of your health has to be paid attention to. A lot of people don't see the connection between their moods, their energy, and their stress and their physical being, which means how much they move, what they eat, and how well they rest. So got to make sure you're getting good rest. Proper nutrition is really important, which means high nutritional content in what you're eating, lots of fresh stuff. Believe it or not, I actually have a nutritional guide from Dr. Andrew Weil in this book. But we all basically know what we need to eat less of. And if you start paying more attention to these physical things as just one sort of key area to managing your stress, you'd be shocked at how more resilient you become. So don't start at a disadvantage is lesson one. Lesson two is make sure that you absolutely have, even if it's a tiny increment of downtime every day. Now, that could be 5 minutes for some people, sadly. Maybe it's an hour. Maybe you're lucky and you go off to the gym or a yoga class or your church or whatever. But whether it's 5 minutes or an hour, you can have a little window of time where you pull yourself out of whatever habits, roles, and chaos you're in so you can get that new perspective, so you can remember what those commitments were that you made when you were listening to the radio show or reading the book or whatever. And then finally, or not finally, but certainly one other point just for now, you definitely got to make sure that on a weekly basis you have a bigger dose of downtime. And what I encourage people to have is at least 1 hour a week where you're doing something that is really just healthfully for you, whether it's racquetball, golf, gardening, a walk in the park, reading, it could be any number of things. It doesn't have to be a spiritual practice, although that would be great, synagogue, church, yoga, but it's got to be meaningful for you. And when you're done this activity, you need to feel like life has fallen back into perspective. It's that perspective that's going to help you manage and mitigate all the junk that's going to come up the rest of the week.
How important is the mind-body-soul relationship? Not very many people talk about that anymore.
Well, and you really hit on what this last point is all about. What I truly believe is that when people take that hour of time to do something that allows them to, quote, really feel like themselves again, they start to naturally wake up to a more spiritual side of who they are. They start to feel a greater sense of gratitude, a more meaningful sense of connection, and actually their intuition starts to speak. A lot of people say, boy, when I went for a run, it cleared my head. Or they'll say, well, I took that watercolor class. And, all these new thoughts and perspectives about what's going on in my relationship came to me. I really, really have come to believe without a doubt that when we invest in a life of wellness or the steps towards wellness, the spiritual dimension naturally shows up, which means another way of saying it would be the more clear we are about the fundamental questions of life, like who am I really and what's really important and what relationships matter most, the more resilient I am. And there's actually a tremendous amount of research to show that this is true. Physician Harold Koenig from Duke University did an incredible annotated study that showed in over 7,000 studies conclusively, the vast majority of the time, people who invested in this thing we're talking about, the spiritual self or the inner self, they lived longer, they got sick less, they healed faster, and they coped better. That's significant.
I also believe, and this is just my own personal observation, Jonathan, is that we have to slow down again and smell the roses. We're moving way too fast, and whatever happened to the good old days where you'd sit down at the supper table with mom and dad and you'd discuss the events of the day, and then you'd go fishing in the evening with dad, or you'd help mom around the garden. It seems that life is missing this connection these days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think when we look at the spiritual practices of the world's cultures, sure, there's a lot of intention there about connecting with a higher power. Absolutely. There's a lot of connecting and balancing energy that's involved. But at the heart of it, a lot of it is just about slowing down, catching your breath, remembering what's important, and just appreciating the moment that you're in. It's that simple. And, people hear you say things like, slow down and smell the roses. It just couldn't be more simple and true. And yet, if we're unconscious of the emotional wounds that we carry, the baggage that we carry, the unresolved places inside, well, then there's a discomfort that we're afraid of. We're afraid that if we slow down, we're not going to like it. We're afraid that if we slow down, this is really the heart of the matter. This is definitely what I'm spending a lot of time working with people on these days. Big part of the book. If you don't become aware of those, they say the skeletons in your closet, then most people are not going to let themselves slow down because they're actually afraid of what they'll find when they do. They're afraid of the emotions, the disappointment, and the self that they're going to have to face.
But that's life. That is what life is about.
Correct.
When I talk to these people who bury themselves in their computer and social networking or in these virtual reality worlds where you've got in real life, let's say Jim is married to Susie, and then in this virtual world, Jim is married to, let's say, Jane. What is wrong with society? Can't they understand that life is real? Virtual reality is not solving anything. All you're doing is you're escaping and making excuses why you can't face the real world that you're in. How do when people come? When people
jump
come
in on that one.
Sure.
There's something that you're really highlighting that I think is so important for people to hear. which is that when you learn to slow down, when you learn to open your eyes and just be really present with what's going on, you find out that the real world is actually a fascinating, amazing, beautiful place.
It truly is, and there's no problem that is so large that you cannot face, work on, and solve. After all, you have to face the demon. You just
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, I mean, I don't know if it's fortunate or not, but I've certainly traveled the world to be among some of the poorest, some of the most disenfranchised, and some of the most broken communities you can imagine, whether it's India, Africa, or elsewhere. And I'll tell you, everywhere on this planet, people love, people laugh, people still have fun, and most interestingly, the World Health Organization just released a report that shows that in a lot of these broken down, poverty-stricken countries, people are actually happier. The rates of anxiety and stress are highest in America, where we really have the least to worry about.
Geez, I wonder why that is. Oh, wait a minute, because Tommy wants this new computer. He also, and Sally wants these shoes because she wants to outdo her friends at school. And, of course, Dad's got to have the most modern car with all the gadgets on it. And then, of course, Mom, well, God bless Mom. She needs what she needs, too. And we have to outdo the Joneses. You see, I've got a very simple philosophy, Jonathan. We've got to take a commercial break, but here it is. Life is simple. Humans complicated. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with my special guest this hour, Dr. Jonathan Ellerby. His website is www.jonathanellerby.com. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. And welcome back, everyone. Dr. Jonathan Ellerby is our special guest this hour. His website, www.jonathanellerby.com. That's JONATHANELLERBY.com. And he's the author of Inspiration Deficit Disorder, The No Pill Prescription to High-End Stress, to end high stress, not to high-end stress. Let's try this again. The No Pill Prescription to End High Stress, Low Energy, and Bad Habits. Once again, his website is jonathanellerby.com. First of all, Jonathan, thank you very much for being with us. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. And I was wondering if you had any final words for the members of the X-Zone Nation.
Well, I thought it was kind of amusing. In our break, we were talking about how do we share our work with people. And here we've been talking about the Internet and the problem with technology. And I said, well, don't forget, people can contact me on Facebook, on Twitter, on my website. So my final thoughts are to say, it's all about balance, right? There's a lot of really important information and connection that is coming through the Internet. If you came on, for example, to my Facebook community, you'd see there's some really passionate people sharing good advice with each other and building community and helping people to have better lives. But, the other side of it is, and you named it, slow down. I mean, if I had any piece of advice, it would be what your mom told you when you were 8 years old, or at least if you're as old as I am, your mom told you this, which is, why don't you go outside?
Oh, my gosh,
Shut the TV off.
That's
go
right.
for a walk. If it's cold out, put a jacket on. If it's raining, take an umbrella. Just slow down and enjoy what's good about this world, because you know what? There's always going to be problems. We're going to come and go through recessions. No political party is going to be perfect. Take some time every week just to enjoy what's good about this world, because that good stuff's not going away. It's always there. The problem is we're just not always paying attention to it.
Mother knows best.
Well, mine did.
Tell me, where can listeners buy a copy of your book, Inspiration Deficit Disorder?
Well, actually the best place probably is just to go through my site, JonathanEllerby.com. I've got a whole page built to tell people a little bit about what's in the book and give them some freebies and some extras on the side and a workbook and all that kind of stuff. And then certainly there'll be links to Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But if you don't want to go to the website, hey, you could hopefully get it at just about any bookstore.
All right, quickly, one more time, could you let our listeners know how they can contact you for more information on the book as well as the ranch?
Yes, absolutely. So, JonathanEllerby.com, even if you spell it almost right, JonathanEllerby.com. Or if you remember the name of the book, you could go to InspirationDeficitDisorder.com. I actually do have links to Canyon Ranch on my website. Or, hey, come find me on Facebook and we could be friends. And I share videos and tips and quotations and things like that in a real positive and helpful way every day. So one way or another, I hope to connect with some of your listeners down the road.
Jonathan, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. And I'd also like to thank Jill Mangino for helping us. Jill is at Circle 3 Media.
Yeah,
well, that's it for tonight, everyone. You and I will be back together tomorrow night at 10 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. Hey, don't forget, the X Zone is going to be moving back to Niagara in November of 2010. We're going to be broadcasting on radio and on television on NNTV. So until tomorrow night, take care of each other, love your children, and always keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.
But you can't stay here.